Okay, guys, I want to talk about Khamzat Chimaev because Khamzat might have learned probably one of the hardest lessons in MMA. Now, after years of looking unstoppable, one bad weight cut, one bad loss, suddenly the entire conversation has flipped. Everybody who's around him is really starting to ask a lot of big questions, and they're starting to wonder, is Khamzat Chimaev actually mentally even ready to compete anymore? Because the biggest question comes down to is, can Khamzat still defend or still compete at middleweight, and can he beat Sean Strickland? Can he beat Sean Strickland? Because if Khamzat does want to move up to light heavyweight, that's an entirely different conversation altogether. But there is one particular individual who we all know very well, who's been in his corner the whole time, and especially during that fight. And his perspective is a lot different than what a lot of people and what a lot of fans think. I'm talking about none other than Arman Tsarukyan, because he's actually come up with the idea, or actually, let me apologize, he's actually pushed back on the idea that Chimaev actually needs to move up to light heavyweight after losing his belt at UFC 328. Arman's got a completely different perspective. And most of you by now know that Khamzat Chimaev is not immortal. He is human just like all of us. But should one loss, should one weight cut actually define his legacy? I mean, look, Sean Strickland gave him a fight. And a fight he did, he took it to him. He took it to him like none other on May 9th. But the world of UFC, the world of combat sports, the world of Khamzat Chimaev changed like overnight. I mean, it was a brutal weight cut. There was talks about him potentially losing between 30 to 40 to 50 pounds. I mean, even after that loss, he told Dana that he was moving up to light heavyweight. Now, a lot of people are like, I don't know. Is that really the best move for Khamzat Chimaev? Should he move up to light heavyweight? Because right now the conversation looks a lot different. And immediately after that fight, Khamzat Chimaev was actually asking for a rematch against Strickland, and a lot of people were starting to question if that's even a right idea to do, or if that's the right thing to do. Arman Tsarukyan, he said it best, right? And according to Arman, he said that Khamzat Chimaev can still make 185 pounds. I mean, his argument was that Khamzat needs to compete at 185 pounds because that's probably his best weight. He doesn't need a new division, at least not right now. What he needs to do is a smarter weight cut, not like balls to the wall, kind of like overnight. I mean, Tsarukyan went on to add that, the issue is not so much, like instead of somebody being 15 pounds over the limit near the end of their camp, they could weight cut a little bit smarter, maybe be a little bit more closer to like the 10-pound mark. But honestly, for Khamzat Chimaev, it looked a lot different. I mean, it was really brutal. Like, he took, God even knows, he might have even taken a few years off his life for the craziness that he had to endure just for trying to weight cut to meet the requirements for him to fight Sean Strickland. I mean, I don't think Chimaev has outgrown the division. I think he is still one of the most dominant players at 185 pounds. In my opinion, I think he should stay in the middleweight division. What to me, what it sounds like is Arman Tsarukyan is talking about, like, say, a camp management kind of a problem, rather than a body size kind of a problem. And that in itself is an entirely different conversation. Because if Tsarukyan's right, then Chimaev doesn't need to reinvent his career. He doesn't need a new division. All he needs to do is to optimize his resources better, more efficiently. He needs to work on his body. He needs to plan better, and he needs to do things well in advance so that he's not scrambling last minute and reaping the ramifications of what he sows. In its sense, I truly believe that Chimaev genuinely can make 185 pounds. I truly feel that. If he does move to light heavyweight, which could be inevitable, I think that's a possibility as well too. But what does that really solve? I mean, look, I think a rematch could happen between him and Strickland. I think that's a real possibility. But this is where the politics are going to start to begin. I don't know necessarily if that ship has sailed, but I mean, I think the fact that a lot of people are starting to miss when it comes to this is that let's look at it from a different perspective. If Khamzat Chimaev can make 185 pounds, that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to get an automatic title, like a rematch, a title shot against Sean Strickland. You got to stop focusing on his weight cut, and like Dana White, for example, he's starting to focus a little bit differently now. He's starting to look at things from a different lens. I mean, all this time it looked like the UFC was building around Khamzat Chimaev, but now, I mean, like right after his loss against Sean Strickland, the first thing Khamzat wanted to do, and that could be purely emotion, was wanting a rematch. He wanted to challenge Sean Strickland again, but now things seem a little bit different, right? I mean, it seems that Khamzat's starting to settle in with the perspective of potentially moving up to light heavyweight. But you have to understand the UFC in itself will decide where he goes, because they're the ones who will decide whether or not a rematch is warranted or whether or not that's the best move for Khamzat Chimaev. I mean, if it's true, and if he dropped 47 pounds just to make this fight, then truly he does need to be a light heavyweight, because the middleweight is not doing any justice for him. And he didn't look good at all. He looked very, very slow, lethargic, weak. I mean, he came up to fight. He did a great fight, but he was half the man definitely in that fight. But I think the truth of the matter is, the real question is going to determine whether or not Dana White is actually going to decide on Khamzat Chimaev potentially staying in the middleweight division and contending for or going against Sean Strickland in a rematch, and if he's okay with the idea of Khamzat Chimaev moving up to light heavyweight. We all know that Chimaev wants the rematch, right? And he also made it very, very clear that the UFC has decided, in his opinion, they've kind of decided already what they're wanting to do. And I mean, to be honest, I 100% don't really know what the UFC really wants to do, because if there was a rematch between Chimaev and Strickland, then Dana would have already said so. That he would have been like, yeah, he's getting a rematch. I mean, it was a pretty close fight, guys. It was. But that door is kind of open, but it's kind of closing and opening, closing and opening. Something's wrong with the hinges of the door or something, but it's leaving a lot of ambiguity and a lot of questions that a lot of people are starting to ask, but we're not really getting anything definitive from the company's perspective as to what it is that they want to do. The fact of the matter is, Sean Strickland is the new champion. And as a new champion, he is allowed to be able to continue on and to be able to create new opportunities for himself, new matchups, which means he doesn't necessarily have to go back and fight Chimaev again. He's been there, kind of done that. I think what Sean Strickland needs to do is to move on to the next contender, move on to the next combatant. And I think Chimaev needs to reground himself, go back to the drawing board, figure out what division he actually wants to fight in, and focus on that, and focus on getting mentally prepared, not only mentally but physically prepared. Because from Chimaev's perspective, he does. I truly feel that he feels that there's some, he's not getting some closure. There's unfinished business, I guess, is the words that I'm looking for. But I mean, both, if you ask Strickland and if you ask Chimaev and if you ask Tsarukyan, you're going to get different viewpoints. And then this just adds to the ambiguity. It adds to the confusion. A lot of people are going to start to ask the same old questions. What exactly does Chimaev's leverage actually look like right now, especially in the UFC? Because I personally, prior to UFC 328, Khamzat's aura was bigger than big. He was invincible. He says jump, in the UFC's like, we've already jumped. You just need to tell us how high you want us to jump. But now we've got a new face of the middleweight division. We've got somebody that I know the UFC is not 100% excited about, and Sean Strickland. But I mean, they have to deal with Sean Strickland. And now Sean Strickland, I mean, I don't think he's going to be fighting Khamzat Chimaev. I think he's going to be taking on I think he's going to be fighting somebody else. And things have changed. Things have changed a lot. Chimaev needs to re-strategize and get back to the drawing board. And he has to treat every fight like, even the negotiations, everything needs to be like as if it was first fight, right? And so that's what I think Chimaev needs to do. He needs to get back. He needs to start working on himself. And this way he needs to prove to the UFC that he's still probably one of the most dangerous fighters in the UFC. He comes back, whether it's at middleweight or whether it's at light heavyweight, it's irrelevant. But whichever division he decides to compete in, if he comes back and wins decisively, Khamzat's aura starts to come back. Whether we see a rematch in the near future for him against Strickland, I don't think so. But the UFC might actually see greater value in making Khamzat earn it and put him up against some different competition. Mind you, I'm sure guys like DDP, Dricus du Plessis, and some other folks are probably just, you know, like, I mean, you also have Acosta. A lot of people want Khamzat Chimaev, but the question comes down to is whether Chimaev actually wants to come back to middleweight. Anyways, guys, we know that Chimaev is going to be fighting for redemption. He's going to have to start to rebuild that momentum again. And he's going to have to answer a lot of our questions by what he decides to do. And what he decides to do is going to be able to kind of put a lot of things to bed immediately. So I don't know what the UFC is planning on doing. I don't know if the UFC is actually considering making Khamzat earn it. I think they're probably going to want to do that. I think that makes the most sense right now. And I think it's just moving on, you know, business as usual. And yeah, I think UFC is just going to have to find a way to work with Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland, as you know, is a very animated individual, says whatever he wants to say, whatever's on his mind, no filter. He brings a lot of chaos and controversy. But Sean Strickland himself said, I'll fight anybody. So that's not, I mean, that's not even the obstacle. I mean, the obstacle right now is that we know he doesn't fear anybody. But the obstacle really comes down to is the UFC deciding on who he fights, because that's what's going to have to make business sense. That's what's going to have to make overall sense. And that in itself obviously is a different issue. But anyways, guys, don't worry about the weight cuts. It sucks. It is what it is. I think lessons learned. Khamzat Chimaev has realized that he needs to change some things in his game, and he needs to do things not so last minute. I mean, he's been training for a while, but I think it's the people around him, to be honest. I think he needs to really maybe make some personnel changes. And that might be hard for him to do because he's kind of one of those guys that's very loyal to the people around him. But I think Tsarukyan's right. I think he needs to kind of look into that a little bit if he wants to make some major changes. And those changes are going to start with making some big changes in his camp. But once he does that, I think he'll be back in tune with what it is that he needs to do, and he's not overtraining. The last thing you want to do, the last thing any fighter wants to do, is to overtrain. So, anyways, guys, that's my opinion. I think Chimaev is. I think he's got a lot of thinking to do right now, right? And I think Arman is on the money. And hopefully Arman is saying some very important things in his ear. But at the end of the day, Chimaev is going to have to make decisions that Chimaev feels is best for Chimaev. And so in the meantime, we're just going to have to sit back, wait, and see what goes on. The UFC is going to continue to move on. That we know. And the UFC, I think, has got a few interesting ideas in mind as to what they would like to see. Now, whether a coaching change is going to happen from Chimaev's perspective or not, or maybe some moves within his camp, that also remains to be seen. But at the end of the day, I think big things are going to be happening for Chimaev soon, and Chimaev is going to have to make an ultimate decision. He can't just be one of those guys who fights once every like 8 months to a year. It's not going to fly within the UFC. And if we're going to take Tsarukyan's word at anything, then essentially whatever Tsarukyan is saying right now, I think Chimaev should pay attention, because the things that are coming out of Tsarukyan's mouth could actually be very important and alter his career either positively or negatively. And remember, Arman Tsarukyan, he doesn't hide the fact that he is Chimaev, one of Chimaev's best friends, and he's going to continue to defend him and continue to support him. And that's the way it is, guys. So anyways, I just wanted to share that information with you, because the public is still, like, including myself, we're still at odds as to what exactly Chimaev wants to do. Little things are being trickling through, but a lot of it doesn't really make sense. But the possibility of a rematch, I think it's not unlikely that, sorry, it's not that it can't happen, but I don't think it's going to happen, at least anytime soon. And I don't think Chimaev is going to be competing in a middleweight division. I 100% still feel he can make 185 pounds. But I mean, the weight cut issues, they're definitely something that he can work on, and I know he's going to work on. And that's it. We're going to leave it. We're going to leave it at that. And if you guys have any comments on this, please share your comments, your thoughts, and I try to answer as many of those comments as I can. So some people are going to blame Chimaev, some people are going to blame Arman Tsarukyan, some people are going to blame Chimaev's camp, some people are going to blame the UFC. But right now, I think the most important thing is Chimaev has got to take everything with a grain of salt. He's got to just take a step back, clear his head, and clear the noise that's in his brain, and stop focusing on the rematch right now. Just focus on himself, and focus on getting healthy, and focus on what he's going to do next. So anyways, guys, that rematch is up in the air. Thank you guys for sticking around. Not sure what you guys think of Chimaev, and if you're optimistic about him continuing on in a middleweight division, or if you think if he's destined for bigger and better. Anyways, guys, I want to thank you guys for sticking around. Please support our channel, and I look forward to catching you guys in tomorrow's video.